Theodore Roosevelt once said, "The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, and spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best, if he wins, knows the thrills of high achievement, and if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat."
Welcome back, everybody, to the Day Before Rehab podcast. I'm Anthony.
I'm Megan.
We officially launched our first episode about 6 days ago, Monday. Today's Saturday, February 10th. And our podcast officially went live on Spotify and YouTube on Monday. We got some really good feedback from people we love, people we trust. One of the things that one of my buddies said was, and I see this all the time on podcasts, right, or YouTube specifically. People say like and subscribe to our channel. So we're going to ask you guys if you're interested in what we're talking about, if you want to know more, if you want to learn about us, our family, our pets. You can find us on Spotify, Day Before Rehab podcast, and on YouTube. So like and subscribe. So I guess for starters, how did you feel this week? I mean, it was a pretty crazy week. I before you answer that, I didn't even think about anyone's reaction when we posted the podcast. All I wanted to do was get it out there. I talked to my therapist. I talked to a bunch of people about it. I just wanted to get it out there. And then when the feedback started coming, I didn't know how to handle it. How did you feel?
Super uncomfortable
Yeah.
that we were airing out our marriage, essentially, and our life that I've tried to keep as much as I can private. Obviously, the judgment that comes along with airing out your life, it was really hard. I struggled for a little bit.
You did. So I think, and I said this to you the other day, I think part of the reason why I thought you struggled this week was, we went down the shore last weekend. We did the podcast 2 weeks ago. But this past weekend I got sick. Not that I was being a bad husband, but the weekend wasn't what we had thought it was going to be. And, that put a damper on things. And, I had the procedure on Wednesday. I had a cardiac catheterization on Wednesday. I've been dealing with some chest pains and they thought I had a blockage. So getting sick for 3 or 4 days, then the procedure, not having a good weekend. It all kind of, with the podcast coming out, I think it was a perfect storm for us to not be getting along.
Yeah. I don't want to say we weren't getting along. You're just moody.
Yeah.
You just get moody. Like almost back to like how you were like when you were maybe using or when you were trying not to use and sober for a couple days and just on edge, I should say. Edgy.
So, I mean, you sincerely asked me Tuesday or Wednesday if I relapsed.
Yes.
Because you really thought that.
I don't know if I thought you relapsed. I just think it's just like a normal thought in my mind. Like when you start acting that way, to automatically think that you're using drugs.
Yeah.
Because you are a totally different person. Like the times that you've gotten sober, it's like you like are. It's just you're different. Like I can't even explain how you're different. Like
what do you mean? Like from trying to hide it to actually being sober?
Yeah, like just like back and forth. Like even throughout the years. Like say you were using drugs, then you told me that you were getting high, and you say that first I know that first couple of days for you was always hard.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as time went on, you would just get better with time. Like, I don't know. you're just different. I can't explain it. Then I know the times that you say you're sober than from the times that you're actually not sober. I don't know. I've been with you long enough to know your personality.
Yeah. Yeah. So this week was interesting for me personally, as my wife knows. I have never, throughout this journey of sobriety in all these years, I've never gotten sick. I've never been depressed. I've never dealt with my routine being jacked up. I've never dealt with being forced to miss the gym or not going to meetings without getting high. It's never happened. And I was sick this past weekend. I missed a day and a half of work. I had the cardiac catheterization. I was miserable. I was sad. You know, I don't know if you would call it depression, but my routine was messed up. I did, without a doubt, do something for my recovery every day. That was still something that, even though I felt terrible and had the procedure, even the day of the procedure, I still went and did something for my recovery. So, and I think my therapist says, he calls it money in the bank. I explained to him Thursday night what this week was like. It was absolute hell for me. I wasn't engaged. I wasn't stimulated. I wasn't focused or connected to you or anything for a handful of days.
And they're the kind of the things that I always worry about. Like when your routine gets thrown off, you get thrown off and you're not yourself. Like you said, you're edgy, you're short, you're this, you're that. And I feel like you need to learn that there will be times that your routine will be messed up, and to just be your normal self, like not let it just, honestly, it sounds so corny, but to bring you down. Like, I don't know. It's just, that's life.
It is life. It is life. So a couple things about that. So a guy I know, I told you about this early on. I had a couple crappy days, and he said my problem specifically is I think I'm supposed to be happy all the time.
Yeah.
And that's unrealistic. And that really helped me. That really helped me because it is unrealistic. And then what my therapist said was that emotional states come and go. And I knew, and I even said to you when you asked me, I'm like, I'm feeling like shit. This is terrible. I am not going to use, because as horrible as I feel now, it doesn't compare at all to the way I felt 107 days ago. So today's 106 days of sobriety, and like nothing I was feeling last week would have compared to going back to the day before rehab. And that's why that day will always be so important to us, and or to me, and I think to you.
But don't you think sometimes that maybe I think it might have been like a month or so ago, you were like feeling a little sick and you're like, oh, my belly hurts, and you went to the store to get yourself Pepto, whatever that shit's called that I'm like so against. Yeah. And then you said a couple days later, like, I think I might have been depressed. And like, I sometimes wonder, since you not being constantly stimulated, that might put you in a little bit of depression. Because I'm not saying that you miss drugs, but maybe just that, like, maybe like the emptiness of something that's like maybe possibly missing for you if you're not being constantly stimulated.
Well, that's a good point, because like
because I think you had said.
I said I thought I was depressed.
Yeah. And because, I had the stomach bug, and I'm like, well, you're eating food, you just felt off.
Yeah. And
I feel like maybe that might be a little bit of depression you had and you didn't even know.
I think I'm getting used to being a human, to be honest with you. Like getting used to dealing with emotional states that fluctuate, not feeling 100% all of the time, and you're not going to be engaged. You're not going to be stimulated every day. And I think I'm getting used to that. And my therapist is like, man, you're not that far away from your last drink. Like, it's not that far.
Yeah.
And he said, you're going to feel like this again down the road. And the thoughts that you had this past week, you're going to have a completely different set of thoughts. You know what I mean? It's not going to be like, I'm depressed, I'm sad, I'm miserable. He couldn't tell me exactly how I would feel, but he thinks that if I had a similar experience that I would feel differently, knowing that I've gotten through this week.
Yeah.
Because I've never gotten through a week like this. Like, as crazy as it sounds, like, I even said to him, I don't get sick, because if I get sick, I'm getting high, and then I won't be sick anymore.
Yeah.
Then I'll just go back to my daily life. But so we got a ton of feedback this week, and one of the things that stuck out to me, somebody said to me, that they really liked the podcast, and they had some experience with addiction in their family, but they personally weren't an addict, and the person's exact words were, I'm an addict. I'm not an addict, thank God. And I knew he didn't mean any offense by it, and I didn't take it that way, but the way I feel, I'm happy that I'm an addict in recovery, because all the craziness of being an addict when you're in recovery, like, now you can devote to other things. Like, my therapist thinks my emotional state and my energy level he doesn't think it's sustainable. And I think it is. I think it's just like I'm finally unleashed on life. You know what I mean? So like, I'm grateful that I'm an addict in recovery. And, it's such a wild feeling, you know what I mean? To be able to get through a week like I just had, finally.
I just feel like you've been numb for so long.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is an interesting topic. We spoke a lot about the day before rehab and my feelings on our first episode. And we also added an intro and an outro of my father. My father was extremely close to me. And I touched on it in the first episode about his 20 years of sobriety and how that changed my life and just a variety of other things. And I'm going to dedicate a whole episode to my father very soon. But this episode is about you, all you.
Woo!
Right, so
the pressure.
The pressure. So I'm not sure I'm going to like a lot of the things that my wife discloses.
Well, you've been buttering me up for the past couple of days, so I'll roast the shit out of you on here.
My uncle watched the podcast and he said I better be rubbing my wife's feet every day for her staying with me. And that had nothing to do with the podcast, I'm being honest, but like in that moment I'm like, sometimes you forget because we got through it. And this particular week, like you were up and down, I was up and down, and it's a lot. And it was a lot for me, and it's a lot for you and all your friends and your family and the people in our circle at the gym. And now everyone knows how many times you've forgiven a piece of shit like myself and how you've given me yet another chance. So the goal today is I just would like to ask you some questions and just have a conversation about how you feel.
I feel like you should have told me all the questions before doing this.
This is not a political debate. We're not giving the questions. It's the president, so he can answer properly. This is off the cusp. I'm just going to ask you a couple questions, and we're just going to see how you feel. First off, why did you stay with me after all this time?
That's a hard question. I feel like you're getting emotional over there.
Well, I'm so lucky, and I shared about this all the time. I'm so lucky that you did, because I'm in love with you. My wife, I love you.
Yeah.
And, I don't know what the experience of rehab and coming home would have been like if you were done. I don't even know that I would have went. I went probably in large part because I knew you were going to wait for me.
Yeah.
So if you threw me out and said, this is it, this is over, I don't care if you go to rehab, I don't care if you die, I don't know where I would be today. That's why I want to know.
That's hard. It's tough. I still, obviously I love you, so that's the number one reason why I'm still here. But I still ask myself that question, like, how have I dealt with this for this long? And I'm sorry. And why I'm still here. It's hard. It's a struggle. I have my on days and off days. I have a super hard outer shell. And I like to deal with a lot of things internally. I'm really thankful for my mom. She's been my biggest, rock. Because I kept it such a secret from everybody. Because of the judgment and, a lot of people, and I get it, why outsiders could look in and think, how could you stay with him? After everything he's put you through. And I don't know. I'm in it. I don't know if it's maybe something my dad has always told, give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and you're in a marriage and relationships work, and I could never give up on you. I think as long as I saw you actively trying to make changes and trying to get sober was always a good sign for me. I feel like if I saw you giving up and didn't want to get sober, then I know that'd be it for me. Yeah. And I think the last time I have had found what I found, that was it for me, because I just feel like this was just like a ongoing hamster wheel that just seemed like it was never going to end. And I never actually ever thought, I had asked myself lots of times, like, and I'm sure you'll have a million questions, like, how am I still dealing with this bullshit? Because, you know, your attitude towards things, like when you were high, or I think it was more like, maybe not when you were high, I think it was when you were
in between.
Yeah, in between, of being like, all right, well, I'm not going to use for like 4 or 5 days, and you just were just not nice.
No.
So I just think the last straw for me was, you know, the last time, and I just said, if he's not going to get better, he's never going to get better. So I can't do it anymore. So, you know, when you said outpatient, you know, I was like so happy. And then obviously we know how that went.
Yeah.
And then rehab, I knew I had some rules for you when you came home. And if you didn't want to, I don't want to say you don't want to follow them, but if you weren't willing to do the steps that I need for you to get better, then I knew that I would, you know, we would have to separate and go our separate ways.
But, you know,
I don't know if did I answer your question?
You did.
Like, all over the place. It was.
You did. What I'm hearing is, you didn't give up on me.
No.
Right?
No.
You didn't give up on me. I have been able to follow the not necessarily, I don't think they're necessarily your rules. They're rules for life that will make me better. Yeah. You know what I mean? So they're just things that I should have done or agreed to do a long time ago. So, you know, and I think our marriage, like, you know, people say all the time, you know, no one's marriage is perfect. And I know ours isn't. And I think with sobriety, whatever perfection in a marriage looks like, we can get really close to that.
Yeah, because I feel like besides that, like like you said,
my best friend.
It's like I want to spend 90% of the time with you. Like I don't want to do anything else but with you. Like I love if I have, you know, if I'm getting off work early and, you know, you had nothing to do, and if someone was like, hey, you want to go golf on Tuesday at 6:00, and you will call me like, hey, are you working or you're not working? Like, I respect that. If I was off, that you knew, like, you would choose, oh, well, my wife's off, you know, on a Tuesday night. Like, I want to hang out with her.
Yeah.
So, I feel like that is like what I love most.
Frankie. Frankie's eating our cat's food, by the way. All right, let her go now.
I just feel like we just enjoy each other's company. Like, we love doing all the same stuff. Like,
same stuff.
Everything.
Everything, top
everything.
to bottom. It's true. Like, you know, I will only golf on a Saturday when you're working, because we work a lot of hours during the week, and it doesn't make sense to me for you to be off from work and me to be off from work and not be together. So that's our connection. Like, we're legit best friends.
Yes.
So, you know, with everything coming out with the podcast and people's reaction and family and friends knowing what's going on, were you, like, this is a tough one, but were you embarrassed?
No, I'm not embarrassed, because if I was embarrassed, I wouldn't be with you. No, not at all.
It's okay.
No, I'm like,
I was embarrassed for you. I was. If I'm being honest, like, you know, your friend, you know, if people are wondering how you could stay with me, I would imagine, or if it was me, if somebody asked me, how could you stay with her? No, I would be embarrassed.
Well, no, that actually is not embarrassing at all. That actually annoys me, because, like you said, no marriage is perfect. No relationship is perfect. For someone to sit in judgment on the choice that I have made to stay with you is crazy, because I could say the same thing about someone else's relationship. Like, I don't want to pull up with that bullshit. I wouldn't stay with him. Like, who am I to say that?
Yeah.
You know, because the situation that I'm in. So, no, I was not embarrassed. I was, like, nervous for people to know my life.
Yeah.
Not that my husband's a drug addict. Like, a lot of the times, I'm like, oh, my husband's sober, he doesn't drink. Like, you know, I don't know. Like, I would never go, oh, man, like, he loves, you know, doing perks. But I would just say drinking. I'm like, oh, yeah, my husband doesn't drink, whatever. It's probably a good thing, because if he drank and then I drank, you know, it would be bad news.
Yeah.
But no, I was not embarrassed. I just think, like, we were really throwing it out there, and a lot of people, like, more people were going to know what kind of person I was.
Yeah. So we talked like at length about the day before rehab and what that was like for me, from my perspective, and all the bullshit that went along with that day and the couple of days before, and you kicking me out, and the experience for me. But, you know, I was thinking there actually could be like a spinoff to this thing called The Day After Rehab, right? And that would be your story. So, you know, I think a lot of what you have said so far is great for people to understand how you were affected by this whole thing, and, you know, kind of where your support system came from. But, you know, I call you, I come home, I say I'm going to rehab. Like, that was clearly traumatic for me. But for me, it was just like, all right, the hamster wheel, as you said before, the circus is over.
Yeah.
It's cut, done. But like, you know, I leave, I'm driving to rehab. You really didn't want to see me that morning. Like, what was that like for you? Day one in rehab. Like, what was that like for you?
A relief.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was happy that you were going. I don't know, it was a little bit surreal. I just was happy that you were going away. And honestly, I felt like just the bullshit that happened, like leading up to that day, like, you know, you showed up at the house and just, you know, calling me, sending me crazy text messages. And
yeah, I texted our whole family.
Yeah, like a mass, like manic text to literally my whole entire
eyes
family.
Are cut. Your daughter is leaving me hanging, and you know, what kind of daughter did you raise? Like typical, as I said before, psycho drug addict behavior.
That was bad. I read that. I was like, oh shit. I'm like,
that was so high. I'm like, my sister even was like, yeah, I wouldn't have done that if I were you. And I'm like, yep.
She was in the thread.
I know. Yeah. She texted me on the side. But
yeah. I don't know. I felt like a relief. You going away. I don't know if I felt it the day after you had gone to rehab. I'd say while you were away, I felt like just a sense of just like freedom. Just relieved. I don't know. It's just like less stressed.
Yeah.
I just feel like just always worrying. I just was so sick and tired of worrying whether or not you were high or not. And the past couple of months leading up to that, because I had found, a few months prior, you had told me that you relapsed. Yeah. You know, I think it was the end of summer, beginning of September. And I was like, oh my God, again. Like, it's like the initial, like, just grossed out. Like, I can't even believe.
You would always say that. You're disgusted.
I just was just disgusted. I'm like, because I just was imagining you doing drugs, and it just is gross. And, you know, having to do that again, and then being like, okay, well, then you apologize, and then I got to get over it. And then it's like, well, I really don't want to get over it. But, you know, obviously, like, as days pass, I would get over it.
Yeah.
So I feel like all those months and up until I found what I found, I had asked you, if not every day, probably every other day, oh, how many days you have today? Remember? And I'm like, I told myself, I'm like, if I ever have to ask him how many days he has sober, that's a problem, because I'm not living my life wondering and worrying every single day if my husband's high.
You know how hard it is to act like you have 25 days?
No, you were always at that getaway, because like when you're sober, you know exactly how many days you have.
Yeah, immediately. Yeah. No question.
When you're not, you'd be like,
how many days you have? 104?
Yeah. Like, just other times you'd be like, it would be like a second for you to even think, because I almost thought I was like maybe counting.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. Ever. Like, even if you told me a number, I was like, oh, maybe that's where he's at. But
like the confidence in my answer is what made you feel good.
Yeah.
And knowing that, I still be like, 34?
Yeah. So I think when you were away, I just was like, I don't have to worry if he's high or not. Like, you know, I mean, I worried about other things while being in there. But I think you had told me, like, I think someone had some stuff in there, and you had.
Oh, that freaked me out.
Oh my God,
that freaked me out.
That stressed me out.
Like having an obsession to get high, like your first handful of days in rehab is tough, and like,
knowing someone has something,
like you don't go into rehab, you know, just having hit the lottery. You know what I mean? So like the place was really nice and it was great, and but not everybody was great that was in there. And this one guy, like, he snuck something in, and I knew it. And all I had to do was pursue it. And when he told me, we're walking back from either lunch or dinner, and he told me that he had Suboxones, and I'm like, let me get one. Like, that was the first thing that came out of my mouth. And he was like, he's kind of like a little rough. And he was like, chill, son, we'll get it later. And I'm like, thank God he said that. Because in that weak moment, right there in the spot, like if he would have just handed it over to me, I would have taken it.
Well, that's the first time you told me that. You didn't say to me that you had asked him.
Well, you don't like.
Well, I understand.
It's an experience that I hope I never have to go through again, because like it was like my 4th or 5th day there, and I'm like, that was, at that point I'm conditioned for that kind of response. Like, let me get one. Can I get one? Where's that? All right. Okay. Later. All right. And luckily, there's meeting after meetings after meetings, and I processed it out. Thank God. I just got rid of the thought.
Yeah.
So I did tell you that. I didn't tell you that, but I told you something like that. I couldn't have shared that with you.
No, I would have been
at
like,
the time.
No. And not because you couldn't have told me that. I would have been like, oh my God, he's going to be doing drugs and rehab. And I would have just, I don't even know what I would have done. I don't even know. I feel like I got to the point where I just was I didn't even care anymore. Like, and that sounds as terrible as it sounds. Like, I think I was so far gone, like mentally, that I just was like, it is what it is. I didn't have any fight left in me.
Well, like, I would get my phone in the beginning of the day and we'd have great conversation. And then I get it to the end of the night and it was like, flip the coin and, she hates me again. She loves me again. Yeah. And I would talk that out with the group and I deserved those types of responses, and I was okay with it. As okay as I could have been. Yeah,
you didn't give me a hard time. I don't know. I just felt like I needed to process exactly what was going on. It just was just a lot. So I don't know. You being in the day after you being in rehab was more just like a lot, like the longevity of you being there and me just trying to know what life without you was like. Mm-hmm. And like I said before, I thoroughly enjoyed while you were away. It was so hard. When you said you were coming back, I instantly was like in a mood. I'm like,
you were pissed.
Oh my God. I'm like,
you're pissed.
I said to my mom, I don't want them to come back. I couldn't tell if it was because I love just an empty house.
Well, I mean, there had to be some points where you were like a little sad. Like, we really never even got into it. Were you sad? Were you upset? Like, when you're in bed at nighttime? I mean, like,
no.
How did you get through that? You just got through it.
I just worked a lot. I was like, well, I don't have to, I didn't care if I worked till 9:30, 10 o'clock at night because I had nothing to go to. It was just myself, the dogs, and that was it. Just get up, gym, work, sleep.
Yeah.
And I just was okay with that because it was not me having to worry what you were up to. Like, it was just a constant, like, always wondering what you were up to, whether you were on your phone, who you texting, where are you at, where are you going? Are you going to a meeting? And I felt like just a nagging, annoying wife, and that's not me. Like, that's not me. And I wasn't like that all the time. No, I just felt like I was like that.
It's like breaks my heart. Like, you would ask me, are you going to a meeting? And I would get annoyed at you for asking because I'm not sober. And everything you do in my life, everything you do comes from a sincere place where you just care about me. And I can take your most sincere, loving question and in my head treat you like a piece of shit. And I would do it every day.
Yeah.
I would do it every day. Are you going to a meeting? You said to me, if you miss a meeting that you're probably going to relapse, and like
you had like this you would like make me feel guilty. That's what it was. And it wasn't like purposeful. I don't think you actively in your mind, like, I want to purposely make my wife think, act crazy, but you had a way of whatever the situation was, making me feel like I was the one in the wrong for asking if you're going to a meeting or just like general things. You know what I'm saying? I'd be like, why is he turning this around on me? What is going on right now? Yeah. They're all supporting me right now emotionally.
Yeah. Well, this is probably what it was like when I was gone.
Yeah, I don't know. It was and I would talk to my mom. I mean, seriously, I would call my mom every morning, just a normal routine. And she would ask me how I'm doing. And I'd be like, weirdly fine. And I think my mom knew that maybe I have this weird, I have a hard outer shell and I deal with a lot of things internally. When it comes to stuff, I don't know. I just think unless I'm having a really bad day, and I always tell my mom, like, you'll know, like, she'd be like, are you all right? I'm like, yes, like, and I feel like she felt like I was lying, but I said, you know, when I have a bad day, like, you'll be the first person I call, you know, you'll know when I'm not okay. And she'd be like, okay. She's like, you know, she just always just, you know, checked up on me. And I don't know, it was just I just think, and she had said to me, she's like, I just think it was just the relief of not having to worry anymore about you, that it kind of just made me okay with the situation of you being away.
Yeah, because like sometimes it seems kind of unfair, my situation and your situation. You know, like I have like a big giant support group. You know, I have the guys in recovery, I have my therapist, and you know, my sister's sober, and like these are people that understand me in a way that you wish that you could, but you can't.
Yeah.
And you know, it's easy for me to process some horrible things out before they even affect my marriage, right? But like, how do you do it? I mean, like, so like, I guess before you answer that, I don't know what being a normal person looks like. I know what it's like to have my dad in my life who I could tell anything to and have him make me feel better. So I guess for a normal person who's not complaining to their parents about wanting to stay sober, you know, I mean, I'm guessing like maybe that's your mom. Like my dad to me is what your parents are to you, right? I mean, I'm asking, like, is that your mom is your main support system?
Yeah, my mom's.
I know you guys are super close and you talked about everything, but like, is that enough for you?
Yeah, yes, but she would always. I have a really good friend of mine who has gone through a very similar situation, and she was really, really supportive while you were away, just checking up on me, just asking if I'm okay. You know, she had mentioned a book that she thinks I should read to kind of just give me some knowledge on like kind of what I'm dealing with when you come back.
Speaking of books, Brene Brown's Daring Greatly. It's actually one of my favorite books. You know who you are. Okay.
I just she was my main, and I was a little hesitant on, you know, she had knew about my situation before, and I had always kind of contacted her if I just wanted to vent or something like that. But I reached out to her when you went to rehab, and I was so relieved when I did. I felt like
great.
Yeah, I felt like I had someone to talk to that understood. And I was like, I really think you should reach out to, your friend. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I just didn't have it.
You don't like putting yourself out there.
No, and I sometimes I just didn't. And maybe I was slightly depressed and just didn't know. And I just go through the motions of things. Like, I don't know. Like, I just felt like I didn't have the energy sometimes to even talk about it. I just didn't care anymore. Like, it just depended on the day. Like, maybe today, Monday, I felt like talking about it. And then and then, someone else would reach out and I'd be like, how are you? I'm good. Like, and I really wasn't good. I just didn't feel like, I just was tired of talking about it.
Like the how are you question, like depending on what state of mind you're in, it's like hearing a sad song. Right? If you're in a good mood and you hear a sad song, you can sing every lyric and be like, this is fucking great, blah, 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 blah. Like, you hear a sad song when you're sad? it's like, how are you? How are you? I'm in a great mood, man. Thanks. How are you? Like, can we talk?
Yeah. I've had plenty of rides. I had to say, like, while you were, like, away, and Frankie, I mean, if I didn't have her, I know it sounds like so corny. I mean, but people that have dogs obviously understand, like, me having her and having like a purpose as if I had a child. Like, okay, well, I know my dog needs to go to the park today. So, say I didn't want to get out of bed because I was sad, or like having just like a day I just didn't feel like doing anything. I knew that like I had to get up for her. Mm-hmm. So like, she helped me through a lot because, like, if I take a walk or like you said, listen to sad music, I would be driving, to the doggy park, and I'd be listening to like the saddest songs. Like, Like just sometimes, and then
that was how it was the first week out of rehab.
Yeah, and then sometimes it would be like really sad songs, and I felt great listening to the sad songs. Like it's so liberating, you know.
Yeah.
As I'm driving, like the song's sad as shit, and I really want to cry, but I just am like having like a really like strong day.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just I felt okay while you were away. I mean, a little bit nervous that I felt like I should have been missing you a little bit more.
Well, I think I just put so much tension in our marriage and so much disgust in your eyes, because I think the one thing I was doing wasn't as disgusting as the other thing. You know, snorting drugs is disgusting.
Yeah.
But
you know,
from your perspective, you know what I mean? And I know even in rehab, I'm like, I really was only snorting drugs for the past 2 weeks. However, I was going to the tobacco store every single day for the past year.
I was just going to say, everyone was like, well, what was he on? I'm like, I don't know, some shit from the tobacco store. And it's almost like people don't believe it. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, they're like, what?
Well, like, so this is the
the shit's legal? This
is the misconception a lot of people have in life. I don't care if you're doing one of anything or 1,000. You know, the classic saying, one's too many, 1,000's not enough, is so true, because I was losing my soul knowing I wasn't 100% sober. Yeah, like it's like regardless of whether you're doing this or that or whatever, and it's this times or this amount of day, and it's what I was doing was literally crushing my soul. I was losing myself. I wasn't going to the gym. I wasn't going to meetings. I wasn't talking to people. And it's funny, like this reminds me of rehab. They taught us that the opposite of addiction is connection, right? When you're active in your addiction, you're not connected to anything. For me, it's absolutely zero engagement, zero stimulation unless I'm on something, no real connection with my wife, my daughter, my animals, my job, the gym, AA, nothing. And regardless of what I was doing, that's how I was feeling. And then I went off the deep end. And then I did all the things that I was trying not to do, and ended up in rehab, you know? But, you know, you said a lot, and I really wanted to do this podcast because I wanted people to understand your perspective on, you know, what the day before rehab looked like for you, how you got through it, and potentially how maybe someone could see what you did or how you were able to get through what you've gotten through, and maybe it'll help them. And, you know, like I said before, like, yeah, you can't watch this podcast. We don't want to see, I don't want you to rehash all the things that I put you through. It's embarrassing. It's a joke. Like, you know, and when you told me someone asked you, why are you still with him? I was thinking in my head, like, you piece of shit. You put your wife through so much hell that when she explains how you are to another person, their first reaction is, why are you with him? He's a piece of shit, is what they're thinking in their head. If someone would ask a partner why you're with the person that they're with, the next thought in their head is because he's a piece of shit and I wouldn't be. And I had to live with that. And, but what I've learned this week is, you do the right thing each and every day, right? You pray in the morning, you do your reading, you do things for recovery, you go to the gym, and the opposite of addiction is connection. And the most influential book that I read in treatment was The Obstacle is the Way, and this week was an obstacle. And what I put you through and the feelings that you felt and the hurt and the pain that I caused you was an obstacle. And even if it takes me 20 years, like it took my dad, it's an obstacle that I just hope you keep letting me try to get through.
Yeah, and I'm just going back a little bit on you saying, like, oh, I'm a piece of shit, blah, 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 blah. But, like, deep down, you're a good person. You know, like, when I met you, you were sober. Mm-hmm. I think you had 6 months, I think. I mean, I didn't know that at the time, but you had 6 months sober. So, and I've known you, I mean, probably 15 years at this point, I think. Maybe around about, I think. 15, 14, 15 years.
Yeah, something like that.
And I think I just overlooked your addiction and who you were, when you were doing the things you were doing. I knew the person that I met before we were even dating.
Yeah, we were friends for years.
Yeah,
we were friends for years. I
always
wanted to,
I was like, yeah, no. I should have stuck with my guns the first time.
So real quick. I hope we get this out of here. So I asked my wife out 5 times before she said yes. 5 times. And the first time she had a boyfriend, she said no. The second time I had a girlfriend, she said no. I think the third time I was like on drugs again and like it just wasn't the time. I was training for a CrossFit competition. I'm at the local track. It's midsummer. I'm running with my shirt off, and she comes walking up to the track with her mom and her friend, and I'm with my buddy Gonzo.
But we just did a competition before that, remember? And there was a food truck, and I was sitting there because I'm always so awkward in like group settings. So I was like sitting by myself, and you just so happened to sit next to me. Yeah, and you were like, "I want to go get some food." I'm like, "Oh, yo, grab you some food."
That was the start.
Yeah, that was the start. And I was like, "Oh, like whatever." Like never didn't think anything.
The spark.
Yeah, just a little something. And then flash forward, I think like a week or so. It was
soon after. Yeah. So she comes walking up with her mom, and like I said, I have my shirt off, and obviously I was feeling myself. My buddy's like, "Yo, she's checking you out," and I'm like, "Really? Was she?" And
I definitely was not.
Yeah. So naturally, like the bitch that I am, I didn't say, "Hey, Megan, would you like to go out with me?" I waited until we were done.
No, I wasn't. You were done the workout, and I didn't even do a full lap around the track. And
I walked up the hill, and
I heard a little ding. Yeah. I was like, "Oh man, tell me he did not message me again on Facebook."
I sent her a Facebook message because I didn't have her number, and I think I just said we should hang out, and she said I think we should, or something along those lines, and she would not let me take her out on a date, our first date. We met at the track. Yeah. And we were both in really good shape, but she was in better shape. And we did a track workout. And, there was like a lap around the track. You do X, Y, and Z, a lap around the track. And she kept beating me. So we're like, you're not even hanging out in this fucking date. Yeah. So finally, like, she waited for me. She says, do you want me to wait for you? And I'm like doing a burpee. Like, yeah, wait. This is because, like, I like you. And we're not talking, but... and I joked with you many times before, we went on a few dates, and I know we're just kind of getting on a sidebar, but we went on a few dates, and my wife texted me, "Hey, you," in the morning, just, "Hey, you." And I've loved you ever since. Mm-hmm. I loved you ever since. And the "Hey, you" text can be lethal. It can be, for a guy, it can be lethal, because if a girl sends you a "Hey, you" text that you don't like, that "Hey, you" is poison, and it's over. But the "Hey, you" text from a girl that you do like,
all the girls that are single heads up.
I'm letting them know. But the "Hey, you" text from a girl that you like, it melted my heart. Everyone in proximity to where I was at that day knew, oh my God, this girl just sent me the "Hey, you" text, and I've loved you ever since. And
see, and then that's the little things that makes me overlook all the bad, or the times that were bad. I always gave you the benefit of the doubt, and always was able to overlook the shit that you put me through. Yeah.
Yeah. So the obstacle is the way. We got through this week. We hit the ground running Thursday, Friday, and today with some momentum. Nice gym, nice breakfast, nice podcast. We're going to walk the dogs. We're going to dinner with friends tonight. And we got through the week.
Yes.
We stayed sober. We got through the week, and we stayed sober by, again, like I said, just, building on what we have done already. Work hard and be a good person. So what I'd like to say is thank you. This was about you. And I know I talk a lot, but, to hear your side of the story is important. It's important. And tomorrow, February 11th, will be 23 years sober that my dad would have had. And, I'm going to do a special podcast tomorrow and dedicate that specifically to him. And if I can do even remotely anything that my dad did for my sister and me, for you and my daughter, by staying sober one day at a time for as long as he did, then life will be all right. And I love you.
Love you too.
All right.
I guess I want to end it this way.
Love you, bro.
Yeah.
We love you, Dad.
I love all of you.
We love you, daughter.
I love you too.
Wow, that was nice.
And I tell you what.